Hello ladies and gentlemen, Matt the Editor here, and welcome to the commentary of Doctor Who Figure Adventures Season 2 Finale, The Time Lord's Bane. Well, technically, The Time Lord's Bane Part 1, since this actually ended up being a two-parter, but we'll talk about it later. But anyway, I was originally thinking of having Sam Lloyd, who has appeared in a couple of my commentaries, to sort of talk with me on this commentary, since he pretty much got involved in like the script editing. He was also the voice of Missy in this episode. We both kind of agreed.
So, where are we this time?
But you know, I don't think it will kind of make sense since he didn't really have a lot involved in this episode, unlike with Phantom of the TARDIS and Day of the Cybermen, which he actually wrote the episode and he actually got involved with like a lot of the voice work. Whereas in this one, he only did like the voice of Missy, and he only did like tiny scene edits, script edits.
Let's go exploring.
And well, we both noticed how long both episodes were together, so we knew that when doing this sort of commentary, it would take like approximately, shall we say, about I don't know, sort of 2 hours long, and we'd sort of like run out of space or run out of time. So yeah, I'm doing it on my own. So yeah, I'm here. I'm just gonna talk about pretty much the entire process of this episode. I really want this to be a singular episode, because I think we pretty much had like too much two-part finales for like the last couple of years. And I really did not know what to. I mean, originally I didn't know how to sort of set out this finale story out as a two-parter. So I really wanted to make it a singular episode. But when it came to like writing the actual script, the story did not seem to fit the approximately 20-minute marker. So I had to like split it into 2 videos, unfortunately, but all the better for it. Now, much like with the episode 1, the Twilight of the Time Lord, this episode has gone through like so many rewrites, and with so many scenes being rewritten and so many changes being made. Some scenes were changed, characters were removed or replaced. Basically, during pre-production, there was like a lot of stuff. There were so many changes, the story wasn't flowing well, the characters had little to nothing to do. I even got my friend Sam Lloyd, who was UDWF1 at the time. I asked him to basically try rewriting the episode himself. And he pretty much became like my script editor for this episode. Yeah, it took like a long while to write the episode, but I honestly, the fact that I managed to try and make this episode come reality actually worked out well. So anyway, now that's out of the way, let's talk about what we're actually seeing on the screen. Now, one of the things I definitely wanted to make happen in this finale is Godfrey's memory coming back, because even though there was elements of it in the other episodes, that he's a swordsman, he's a servant, I don't think there's like a lot of like flashbacks to like him actually coming from the legend of King Arthur, and I wanted that to be a sort of poignant part of what happens, because one of the things I kind of wanted the Doctor to sort of go through in the story is that whilst in series 1 he was pretty much just sort of getting to grips of what he was, what sort of Doctor he was, and what kind of Doctor he is, and what he's trying to do. This one, he's in this series, he's pretty much done what he's done, but not for the best of consequences, basically. And so basically he's made a lot of mistakes, and he's trying to sort of mend those mistakes, but in doing so it sort of caused a lot of harm and a lot of trouble with himself and people who know him that well. So that's pretty much what I wanted to come across with this this series finale, because there's like a couple of stuff going on. There's like the return of Gallifrey, but also the sort of the idea of the Doctor going dark, sort of objecting his own morals, his own code, so to speak. I'll admit, it's actually kind of cool to include stormtroopers in a Doctor episode. Now, one of the things that one of the changes mostly involved the Doctor finding out that Freya has been traveling in time to find Godfrey, and he's pretty much hiding Godfrey from her. When I was writing the script, basically most of the prologue and basically most of the first couple of scenes in this episode were mostly switched around a couple of times. But it was originally, it would have originally had the village scene we just had, and then they would have had Godfrey find Freya, but then the Doctor's pretty much trying to pull him away from Godfrey. Godfrey's not liking it, so the Doctor's pretty much made Godfrey sort of leave. One of the drafts actually involved Godfrey having to go and training with units just to keep him out of trouble, and then we would have followed the Doctor trying to find clues to Osiris, which then lead him to meeting Freya, which is basically this scene here. This might actually be a good point to talk about why is the Blue Man the car truck, which some of you might remember from series 1 in this episode. Well, for this particular moment, we would have found out that Freya has actually got in contact with basically the reason how she managed to travel in time, sort of catch up with the Doctor and Godfrey, is basically that she came across the first ship, this sort of alien ship in the volcano from episode 2, which is where she came across the Guardian and members of Osiris, and then they would have actually given her the backpack from episode 1 to travel in time to catch up with the Doctor. There we go, as we saw there. It's just the same guy from episode 1, which we recognize from Moment of the Doctor, was actually there. That has left the Doctor feel pretty much angry at this moment that he was almost tempted to kill, which is what the Doctor never does. The Doctor never kills. And I think I should say, seeing as how I've pretty much had Godfrey kill a man, in one of the original scripts did actually involve the guy, that guy who follow, that they both work with from the Moment of the Doctor, Jamie. That's the one, Jamie. We would have also found out that Jamie most of the time was working with the Guardian, but I didn't know who the voice actor was at the time. I don't know if he would have had enough time, and we already had like a lot of characters in the script, so I knew it, and there was already like a lot of stuff going on, so I knew I didn't have enough time to include him.
How could you?
So yeah, he was removed. But basically at this point, Godfrey is pretty. I know I mentioned it in episode 2 where he says if he ever remembers his mind will burn. Pretty much the Dr. Donner effect would have happened. It wouldn't have killed him. It would have pretty much just sort of killed him inside. Pretty much heartbroken, that sort of stuff. If he found out, almost sort of confused him, that sort of bit.
She was my best friend.
What are you doing?
Don't ever come near me again.
Put the sword down,
Don't
Godfrey.
you dare tell me what to do. This is all your fault. Never should have trusted you. Never.
I'm sorry.
What are you doing?
Now, fun fact, this scene in the toilet, that was actually originally filmed before the scenes in the village, and that was during one of the original drafts of the script. This scene would have been, we would have had the bit where they found Freya in the village, and the Doctor would have said, go back to the TARDIS now, and then the Doctor would have pretty much just sort of started to sort of take off, and the Godfrey's like, no, you can't do this, you have to tell me the truth, and the Doctor's like, no. So he pretty much forces Godfrey to sort of leave. He sort of pretty much just left Godfrey at a place where Freya wouldn't be able to find him. And one of the original scripts was to have Godfrey pretty much be gone to work with Unit. Pretty much the Doctor would have got Kate and Unit to sort of try keep an eye on Godfrey, sort of keep him out of trouble. so that he doesn't go out to find the Doctor, and also he wouldn't come close to the truth that he had his mind wiped, and he was pretty much sort of kept taken away from his home, so to speak. And then from there onwards in the original script, we would have had like the Doctor pretty much just sort of taking jobs from UNIT, because the scene in the village was at one time going to be like a prequel to this episode, which would then lead to a scene where the Doctor comes to the caves, which I'll get into that later. Sorry about that, there's a motorbike outside. But yeah, basically this is pretty much a point where the Doctor's pretty much sort of angry. He wants to go and find Romana. He wants to find Osiris, and he wants to make sure that Gallifrey does not come back, even if it means sort of killing them. And Kate and UNIT know that. I mean, after what happened with Connie in episode 1, they know that he's close to sort of disobeying his own code, his own orders. So, and in the original script, they were pretty much just sort of getting him to do like a couple of chores, like go out for this, sort out some attacks, go out, look at this sort of occurrence, that sort of stuff. Pretty much just sort of keep him busy so he doesn't go out to find anything about Osiris.
No, it's going to be a nightmare.
Now here, I am so pleased. Like, I had like a couple of good reactions when this clip of the Doctor's regenerating hand was released in the trailer. Which by the way, I think the trailers I did for the finale probably one of the best trailers I've done. So thank you guys so much for your support. I'm actually surprised to see to find all the people's response of the Doctor might be regenerating in this episode. One of the things I kind of wanted to play a part in the finale from the first episode, where we saw the Doctor pretty much start to regenerate after Romana pretty much injured him in Atrios. Basically you would have questioned, wait, why didn't he fully regenerate? Should he still be a different man? Why isn't he regenerating again? And it's pretty much that the Doctor pretty much just sort of held back the regeneration for as long as he could after what happened, and he's pretty much just sort of holding it back. And this is at a point where his entire cycle in his body starts to burn up, and his regeneration is sort of starting to fight back, sort of burning him inside. And so basically at that point he knows he would be running out of time, so he's doing whatever it takes very, very quickly to sort some things out.
Have you ever wondered what I've been doing since we last saw each other? Remember on Scar?
Now when it came to like Missy, I was almost tempted to almost have like the Doctor see a vision of Missy throughout the entire series, but with an exception of like him seeing Missy in the Day of the Cybermen clip. I wasn't quite sure exactly how that would sort of play a part. I mean, with the first episode, it was pretty much his mind going crazy. Pretty much he had no one to talk to, so he pretty much created a vision of Missy, who was actually sort of telepathically talking to him from the prison. So, and when it came to like finding Osiris, the Doctor knows that Missy would know something about it, because he's pretty much known Missy or the Master for a long time, and he knows that they know that she knows something. I mean, especially when it came to like what happened in episode 1, he knows that Missy knows something about this sort of plan. So he goes to pretty much ask what she knows about Osiris, and so she tells him to go and find this sort of clue. As we might find any minute. Trenzalore. That was actually a last minute thought. Now, the original idea of the cave scenes was that the Doctor would have come across the cave either from Missy's advice or upon finding the clues at the same location of where Freya was killed. Because basically in the original story, whilst the Doctor was pretty much working for a unit, he would have got a call from Freya. They would have had that talk we've had in the beginning of the episode, and then they would have found that there was like a disturbance going on underground. So the Doctor goes underground to find the caves, which is there he would have found the code. Now, but the original scene, when I actually filmed the entire scene, the scene would have involved the Doctor finding the language, only to hear like this sort of deadly voice in the caves. This would have pretty much have been like a sort of throwback to what the cave was in episode 1. Pretty much, should we say a sort of devil's voice, and which would have also been like a sort of like a main part of what happens at the end of the actual finale episode, which I'll get into that later when I talk about the next part 2. But also at that scene, we would have the Doctor would have seen illusions and visions of Missy Romana disguised as a boss, the Guardian, who at the time was originally filmed in a real body, a Cyberman, and a Dalek. They would have all come out to sort of taunt him, and then it would have finally had the Doctor see a vision of Godfrey crying out to him, saying, why did you do it? Why did you remove my memories? You took me away. You ruined everything. And then that would have finished with a vision of Connie and Keith, which would have been like a sort of bookend to what happened at the beginning of series 2. This would have then made him sort of devastated, which would have led the Doctor to sort of come out to find the attack and pretty much just sort of go against his own motives and pretty much do whatever it takes to sort of find Osiris. Now, as I mentioned in my earlier commentaries, one of the original narratives of series 2 was the rivalry between the Guardian and Romana. Romana in disguise as the boss, and it would have been shown throughout the series. And then when she begins to have the Guardian pretty much be killed, it was originally the Guardian who breaks Missy out of the Shadow Proclamation to take down Romana. So when I pretty much started writing part 2, I wasn't quite sure exactly what else to do with the Guardian, so I instead decided to remove the character. And then I sort of thought, wait, what would have worked much better? Would it have worked much better if this enemy would have broken out one of the enemies out of prison, or wouldn't it be much more sort of challenging or thought-provoking if the Doctor did it? What if the Doctor broke Missy out of prison? Just to try, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or to catch a crook, you need to act or work with know a crook, that sort of thing.
Now, you will be returned to your cell, and as for you, Doctor, you are to be put under quarantine and are now considered a threat.
Can I have a glass of water, please?
Now I will admit, I mean, I'm sort of questioning how is there like a water container in an alien police station, but bear with me on that. Since I sort of noticed in the continuities, I forgot to animate the scene of Missy taking a sip, before she spits out the water. So yeah, my bad.
Not bad.
But basically, in the original script, the scene with the Guardian and Missy would have been pretty much the same as this, just without the Doctor. And then in the original script, we would have found that Missy and the Guardian have both captured Romana and Godfrey to sort of lure the Doctor to them. But when it came to like rewriting the script again, I sort of thought, actually, I think it would have been much better, if we focused. I wanted to keep the focus more on the Doctor's sort of dark side throughout most of the episode, and I think having the Doctor sort of rejecting Unit's advice, breaking Missy out, and pretty much just sort of breaking his own morals, just to sort of try and almost kill, pretty much just to try and go and kill Romana, I think is much more dark and much more challenging, or just to sort of to happen in a series finale. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention earlier, because I pretty much got myself attached to like a lot of original scripts. the reason we see the Doctor pretty much working with the same car truck or the Guardian is basically because, as we saw in the earlier scene, Unit pretty much just sort of took the robot android in, and they sort of made a few adjustments to it. It would be able to sort of follow their orders rather than go against them. And basically, after the Doctor had this sort of argument with Kate, which was originally much brutal. It was more along the lines of the Doctor pretty much saying, just do what your father always did, just stand around and follow orders, that sort of stuff. I thought was a bit too much. I can't quite remember if that line did actually go in or something, but I don't know. But basically after that scene, the Doctor then just sort of took the car truck / Guardian android and pretty much just to go after Missy. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that the Guardian and Missy would have actually kidnapped or basically sort of convinced Godfrey to come with them. That scene was actually filmed and used in this episode, but then after I did like a couple of changes, I then had to pretty much add the Doctor in the background and then have this scene, which, funny enough, the original script pretty much happened that when the Doctor pretty much arrives, in the original script, pretty much when the Doctor arrives on Osiris, we would have had like another scene between him and the Guardian, where he and Godfrey are pretty much sort of trapped in the cell, and we would have had this scene basically, except not in a desert. We just basically would have had the scene in a cell. This is pretty much a point where the Doctor's pretty much just sort of realized that should have told Godfrey the truth. And he's trying to sort of make amends with him. He pretty much just wanted Godfrey's help, but he knows that he's hurt Godfrey too much, and Godfrey's just not rely on the Doctor. He cannot trust him anymore. That moment there with where Godfrey pretty much just sort of drank a whole bottle. Yeah, that's pretty much just to show his sort of drunken side. Pretty much he's just gone a bit angry, drunk, depressed after what happened with Freya and the Doctor on that place. So he's pretty much just sort of moved away from society. He's pretty much just sort of hiding, just so so that he doesn't like pretty much like the Doctor, so he doesn't get into like a lot of trouble. He doesn't get like a lot of people hurt. I think the scene with them in this sort of desert with Freya's grave, I think, is much more better than just having them talk in a giant scene, because basically that scene pretty much would have gone like a long while, and I wanted to keep things moving because basically in the original script there was like a lot of talking, not a lot of doing. So I think the idea of the Doctor pretty much just going finding Godfrey just to try and convince him to come back, just so they can go on this sort of like one last adventure. But Godfrey refuses to do so because of what the Doctor has done. So the Doctor is pretty much just left alone with Missy and the Guardian / car truck to find Osiris. Now I will admit it's a bit odd that there's a grave to Freya, even though her body was pretty much left at the original location. But basically the point is it's a memorial stand for Godfrey. And back to the original script. Basically, we would have had that scene talking, so that then we would have had like the Doctor and Godfrey pretty much escape from this cell, and then sort of track where Romana could be in the Osiris space station, which we then find out is a space station, only to find that the Guardian and Missy have taken over the organization, and then we would have found that Godfrey has held his sword at the Doctor to reveal that he's been convinced to betray the Doctor. They can like take his TARDIS and technology just to bring Freya, so that he can bring Freya back, that sort of thing. And that was originally going to be like the plot twist in the cliffhanger.
Right, we should split up. You see, you and the robot will take this direction. I'll take this one. No funny business.
Okay, now looking at this, if there's one thing I feel that I really should have used a lot more in this series or in this episode, it's Romana's TARDIS. I mean, when I took the photos of it down at Sam's, I pretty much improvised for that set. It was a last-minute addition. I sort of thought, oh, it would be a funny idea if Romana had her own TARDIS. I mean, since the Doctor has his own TARDIS, the Master at one point had his own TARDIS. What if Romana had a TARDIS? I mean, she is a Time Lord, or Time Lady. And in the original script, it was actually going to be used again. Seeing as what you saw what happened in Part 2, we would have seen Romana pretty much escape in her TARDIS. And yeah, we don't see it, but I'll talk more about that when we talk about Part 2. So yeah, I was a little disappointed I didn't get to use a lot of Romana's TARDIS. I mean, one, I only had like a couple of minutes when I filmed the scene in her in her own TARDIS, and then I saw for, I guess we can have Missy sort of blow it up. And by the time I was actually at Sam's house where I would be able to film more of her TARDIS, there were parts of it that were missing, and that's pretty much a short answer. There was a lot of stuff that was missing when I was pretty much started using the TARDIS. So instead, I sort of thought, okay, we'll have Missy sort of destroy it, and then have like its remains in Part 2. Now here's the thing. As I mentioned earlier, most of the scene was pretty much the Doctor talking to Godfrey, the Guardian, and all that. The scene with the Doctor pretty much sort of confronting Romana, gun pointed at all, that was actually supposed to have been in Part 2. In Part 2, we would have had pretty much what happens, and then the Doctor pretty much would have had Romana at gunpoint, and basically we would have they both would have been in a room together, and then we would have had that scene that we've got here. But yeah, as I mentioned before, when there was like a lot of scene changes and a lot of rewriting, and then one of the things I was sort of thinking, well, if you've seen Part 2, you pretty much know what happens, but I was looking back on the entire series, I was thinking to myself, there was not a lot of scenes with the Doctor and Romana to really think of what happens at the end of this series. I think was built up properly, or at least was was needed, if you know what I mean. So I then thought, okay, we can have the scene with the Doctor sort of confronting Romana, gun pointed. I think would have worked a lot better in this one, and seeing as how it does lead to a very, very I would say sort of spine tingling moment.
What happened to you?
Don't.
Look.
The truth is, I came to.
Now I will say, I have pretty much disobeyed the rule of show don't tell. As we saw a couple of minutes ago, Romana was pretty much explaining how did she escape the time lock to here, which we never got to know in episode 1. I was originally sort of thinking of filming a flashback of Romana at the Time War, pretty much show what happened. By the time I was filming this, I didn't have enough time to film, so I thought, okay, I might as well give like a little hint. I don't know, maybe I might do like a mini-sode flashback or something just to explain it. Now basically, as we see there, the Doctor's pretty much just got Romana exactly where he wants her. He has her at gunpoint, he has the opportunity to sort of kill her, but then he realizes what he has become. He knows that if he kills, he's pretty much losing the last of his humanity. After what happened with Connie, he did swear it will not happen again, and he realizes that he's doing what he said he would never do. He would kill him. So instead, he then decides it would be much better if Romana was taken under custody rather than killed. But that being said, now let's talk about that twist ending. Now, if you've seen this episode, you know what appears. Let me just start off by saying I was so tempted not to include them in this episode. I was so tempted not to include the Daleks at the time. Since at the time, Daleks were pretty much becoming an annoying thing to see every year. And I didn't want to make it a tradition to have Daleks appear in every single finale episode that I produced. And it was after I saw Thomas Walker's FA Visions of Prophecy, and I noticed there was a creature he created called the Kamara. Anyway, I didn't know much about them, but I did think maybe they could possibly work. Sam even suggested maybe using this character. So I then sent a message to Tom to ask for his permission, as well as some background information. Again, when it came to the script writing, I could not think of how they would fit in the story. I mean, especially when we already had Roman and Missy in the original script, the Guardian, so they would end up becoming useless. And one of the alternative twists involved the Chimera becoming Dalek humans, was also that they would have revealed to be Time Lord soldiers, or pretty much creatures which I wanted to call the Chronarchs, which I thought would come across as an old Time Lord story, similar to the Toclafane. But again, as the writing continued, it got harder and harder to sort out. So in the end, I was left with no choice that I had to use the Daleks in the end. And honestly, looking back now, I think it worked a lot better than I thought. Oh, I should say, I had to re-release this episode again on YouTube because the scene where the Daleks actually got struck with copyright issues, mostly because of the music, and so basically I had to sort of re-edit the music and the sound of the Daleks' entrance in this episode, so that's why I had to re-upload it. So there you go, guys. That was my commentary for the Time Lord's Bane Part 1. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this one. And as you can see, there was a lot of talking, mostly with the script changes. The same could probably be said for Part 2, but Part 2 was a lot easier to get around. So thank you guys for watching for this one, and I'll see you next time for the Time Lord's Bane Part 2. Take care.